get a price objection. Right? Simple as that. If you go to the grocery store and it's $15, that's higher than I expected, I'm never buying it. I go to the Titans game, the beer's $5, I'm buying it all day long because I see the value in that environment. Right? We can't change our price. So what's the only thing we can change? The number in the customer's head, right? Yeah. So the entire process that I'm going to teach you today is designed to raise the number in the customer's head to the point that by the time I give them my number, their number's higher than mine or equal to mine. You'll hear me say it again. They don't have to like my price. They just have to understand it. If someone tells me I'm too much, I'm too expensive, I failed. I did not clearly explain the value and the amount of work that goes into this job. If you think I'm too expensive, I failed as a consultant. Right? Again, you don't have to do it. You don't have to like it. You may not have the money. You may not be able to afford it. But you're never going to tell me it's too much, because you're going to fully understand the value in what I'm bringing you. And so when we go through this 50-step process later after lunch, and you're like, Jesus Christ, I got to do all, there is a reason for every one of those steps, right? And they're usually to add value to again, we're raising that number in the customer's head. Kind of like what I was talking about with your production guys, right? If we just, hey, you need a liner. Oh, cool, I've heard of those. The metal thing goes down the chimney. 15 grand. Lost your mind if you think I'm spending that, right? But if I go through and this entire thing that we're going to talk about today, I got a shot, right? Does this make sense? So our job is to raise the number in the customer's head. And again, that's why I say you'll never have another price objection. Again, they may not like the price, but they're going to understand the price, okay? So a couple other things. When it comes to price objections, if you get it, it's going to happen. I say you're never going to get it. I mean, I literally had it happen last week. The guy was like, man, he goes, I really feel like I need to get another quote on this. I said, if you feel that way, you should do it. I said, let me tell you a couple things, about this industry that you may not know. I said, first of all, there's zero licensing in the chimney business. Like literally, you could be a chimney sweep, you could go out and give another customer a quote, and there's no organization that says you have to know the first thing about knowing anything about chimneys. And when you think about that, that's pretty scary. So I have zero doubt that you can call someone else and get a cheaper price, right? If the goal here is cheaper price, I'm probably not your guy, right? But here's the other thing that I'll tell you. If you call out another certified guy, nothing that I have told you today is opinion, right? This is all hard fact, right? They're gonna find the same things. Anything that someone else could do, I can do as well. The reason we are making these recommendations are A, B, and C. I am never gonna be far off, right? I may not be the cheapest, but I'm never gonna be far off. If someone else comes in and tells me, man, they're doing it for half price, we're not talking the same scope. It's impossible, right? And so when you start going through and thinking about, all in their mind, I think I should get another quote. And we kind of went through the whole thing. I said, well, as I was explaining all this, I said, it was a tear down rebuild, small chimney. And I said, what were you? I said, just curious, what were you expecting this number to be? Where did you think this number was going to come in? He's like, man, I'll be honest with you, I didn't see it being a penny over $5 grand. Right? I said, well, we're pretty far off. And I said, you know what we're not far off on? It says the rebuild. If you look right here, this rebuild itself is only $3,500. So I think you were pretty close. You were pretty close with that number that you had in your head. The things that we didn't take into account for is, I got to get a dumpster out here. I got to protect your roof. I got to protect your cars. I got to protect your stuff. I've got to take this. I got to set up scaffolding because I'm literally going to take down 250 bricks, and I got to put those in buckets, and I got to take them down by ropes, and I've got to put them in the dumpster. I've got to dispose of them. I've got to whenever I take this chimney back up, I got to replace your flashing. Right? I got to put a new concrete crown on the top. I've got to replace, I've got to waterproof it. I got to put the cap. Now I can take some of these waterproofing and caps off. That gets you closer to that, $8,000 number. But you spent all this money, or you're needing to spend all this money because of water intrusion. Why would you want to put this kind of money back into it to only be susceptible to having this happen again, right? And so he's like, those are all good points, right? And he ended up buying. He didn't like it, but he ended up buying because in his head, he thought something should cost, but he wasn't accounting for all the other things that were included in that number, right? And so taking the time to make sure that when they said, what were you expecting this to be, and then finding a way to agree with them in some way, that's not far off for this, right? And then my other favorite thing is when someone gives you a number, say, I'm always trying to learn, Mr. Jones. I said, just curious, how did you come up with that number? Where did you get that number from? There's only two answers to that question. One is they pulled it out of their ass, made it up, felt like it should cost that much. Or two, I'm in a competitive situation and they've got another quote, right? Well, the other guy come out here, he was $4,000. Well, I'm at 11 or 4. We're obviously not talking about the same scope of work. He can hide his pricing, but I'd love to see what he's recommending versus what I'm recommending, so I can make sure that we're not talking apples and oranges here, right? The last thing on the price, and I don't call people liars too often, but I would call you a liar to your face without even knowing you if you say that this is not true, because I do it, and everybody does it. 50% of price objections don't come from the customer. They come from you, right? We have this innate, amazing ability as salespeople to know how much people are going to spend, how much they're willing to spend. It's amazing. It's like a clairvoyance that we just know this magic number, and if we go over that magic number, then they're not going to buy. But as long as we stay under that magic number, we have a good chance of selling it. And so therefore, we feel the need to manipulate certain things. We feel the need to, man, I'm at 7,100. You know what, 6,950 sure sounds a lot better than 7,100. Or, you know what, they really do need that full coverage cap, but man, I'm already at 11. That's going to put me at 13. Man, I'd rather get all of 11 than none of 13. So maybe I'll just do the single flu on this one and I'll sell that next year. Or we start playing these games with our head as to, well, what's this customer going to react to what I am doing, right? And so it is such a disservice to our customer when we start manipulating. First of all, you get someone $200. I don't know if you have the ability to do that, but if you change the price a couple $100, one, they don't even know you did it, right? You still got, like, if you're going to close it at $6,900, you're closing it at $7,100. You just gave away $200, and they're probably still going to ask you for a better deal, right? They don't even. So it is what it is, right? It is not you telling them what they need to do. It is they told you what they want to do, and here's how we do it, right? If they want to object from that, then we can go from there. But get out of this mindset of you need to be at a certain number or a certain place for this person to buy, because the one thing that we all have done is we've all walked into a house and said, ugh, zero chance I'm selling shit here, right? Like, it's smelly, the grass is high, the house is falling in, there's crap everywhere, and then we sell 10 grand. Well, what happened? And then, we go into the $1 million house and it's like, yes, and then we realize the reason they have $1 million is because they ain't giving it to nobody else, right? It's that same kind of mindset. So don't judge situations, and I'll admit I do it too. I'll pull up to houses and I'm like, yeah, all right, seen this movie, you know how it ends, right? So, but you gotta trust the process. So, you good?
Yeah, I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Any questions about price objections? What they are, how you get them, what we need to do to prevent them?
Just for clarity, because sometimes I do sell stuff, but it's been a long time.
Yep.
What if they want multiple different quotes, to take the time to go through all of this, and that, it's like, because I had a lady run me through the ringer one day, and
Yeah.
gave her 5 different things, and she starts selecting different things from different ones, and
Yeah.
it's like,
Are you talking about stoves or like?
stoves, just different options.
Yeah.
They wanted them all separate, and
Yeah, so I mean, typically I go back to, what are their goals, right? What's our goal here? Our goal is heat, our goal is performance, our goal is wood, gas, whatever the kind of thing is. And I don't give customers options. I don't bring out a brochure. Now, if I'm in the store, it's different. If I'm in the store, I want to use something like Wi-Fi, or I'm going to do whatever. But if I'm in the home, I say, based on everything that you told me and the size of your firebox, this is the unit that I would go with for these reasons, right? I show them that unit, and if they like the unit, then I proceed. If they're like, it's okay, well, this is more of a modern style, we have a traditional style, what do you think of this, right? And then I'll go to that. And then once I've selected on that, then I start talking trims, things like that, and I'll kind of walk, well, what do you like, the gold inlay, or do you like the black background, right? And walk them through that. If someone is just adamant, like, well, can you show me, all these, to be honest with you, price is not going to change, right? And, it may change $100 or something, but which one of these do you like? I can put this one quote together, and then all these other 4 are going to be within a couple $100, right? But that's typically the way. So, and we'll get into this when I talk about option stall. But there is there was a study that was done, and basically it's called the paradox of choice, right? And so the study that got done was they took this restaurant. There was basically 100 people in the restaurant. They split it up in half. 50 people over here, 50 people over here. Same chefs, same waiters, same everything, right? Everything, same food, everything was the same, except for this place over here had a menu with 15 items on it, and this place over here had a menu with 5 items on it, right? And then they did a customer experience study at the end, and they found out that the place that had 5 menu options overwhelmingly had a better experience. And so they were trying to figure out why. Do you have any guesses onto why the 5 had a better, even though the food was the same, because people had more options, right? But why were these people happier? They have to think as much. That's a big part of it, but it's more specific than that.
Could be that they had so many options they were confused. Like, I wanted this, but then I chose this. I could have got that, but I went with this.
That's
not
a
sure
big
that
part
was
of
what
it.
was.
You guys familiar with FOMO?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're
What is it?
missing out.
Yeah. So the less options, the less likely you are to make a mistake, right? Oh man, I really wanted the lobster, but man, what if that steak's better, right? Over here, you got, man, I do love chicken. Oh my God, that comes with creme brulee. Right? You're like, well, I guess I'll do this. So you ever been to a nice restaurant and ordered something? What does the waiter always say to you after you order?
Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Good choice. Wow, excellent choice. I had that this morning. That's my go-to. They didn't have that this morning. That's not their go-to. It's bullshit. They just they're making you they're making you feel better about the choice that you made because you're about ready to spend $50 on a steak and they want to make sure that you feel good about that. Excellent choice. Oh, I love it. I'm really allergic to fish, but you know that it is by design. So we want people to feel good about it. Again, they don't want to be sold, they want to buy, right? So we want them to feel good about their buying decision. And as an expert, that would be like, are any of you guys HVAC guys? That like me coming into you and saying, you're my customer, and saying, okay, well, we need to replace the unit. I've got 3 here. I've got the Trane 2400. It's got this type of circulation and an induction unit, and then it's got I can go with the Waller 4400. That's about 3,000 more BTUs on the heat side. It'll hit you about another 100 square feet. Or I can do the Jing Jang 5000. What are you thinking? You're gonna look at me like I've lost bro, I called you. You're the expert. Like, what do I need to do, right? And so the more that you have to make that decision, the more you're gonna I'm not sure I'm making the right decision, right? So I tend to basically this is our number one seller, right? This is my go-to. This is what we're the most comfortable with, the easiest to service. We have the least issues with these. They look great. Make them feel good about the decision. Later in here in the options stall, you'll hear me say, discuss options, don't propose them, right? I mean, I have no problem telling you about all the things that we offer, but when it gets down to pen and paper, I want to make sure that it's a solution that is right for you. Okay? So budget objections. So Service Titan and Green Sky make this very easy because they put all the numbers right on your proposal. But again, they don't have to like the price; they have to understand it. So tell me what financing options you guys currently offer.
12 months in cash,
84 months at 8%, and then
But they can pay it off as soon as they want. So
sure,
there's
no
penalties.
prepayment penalty. We're just gonna do something really quick.
People like to hear that.
Absolutely. Okay. So, just so you know, 12 months, same as cash, 84 months at 8%, $78 per 5,000. It's a number you guys need to know, right? Just keep that in your head, $78 per 5,000. And so my close, I'm gonna skip ahead to the very end. When I get to the very end, I do what's called the financing option close, right? So we kind of go through everything. I'm gonna explain what all we do before we get to that point. But when we get to the end, and we'll say, at the end of the day, Ms. Jones, this is a $10,000 investment, and basically we have 3 ways that we can get this project scheduled for you. Our most common is we take half of that down today. We can do check card, and we'll take $5,000 or the other half whenever the job is complete, and we're done with it. We're about 6 weeks out, so you're gonna have roughly 6 weeks to come up with that other chunk that'll get you on the schedule, get everything ordered. If you're like I am, you didn't really necessarily have 10 grand sitting around for your fireplace. We recognize that. Our company has 2 very cool payment options for this. The ones that we offer for you is our 12-month same as cash. Basically, it's a 0% loan for a year that allows you to quick credit check. We give you the 10 grand up front, and you have a year to pay us back with no penalty and no interest. So if you want to pay a little bit a month, or you want to pay it all off in 11 months, whatever's easiest for you, just be sure you pay it off within 12 months. Otherwise, a lot of interest gets backfilled onto that. If we feel like we need more than 12 months, I do have an 84-month option that does carry a little bit of an interest rate. Works out to be about for every 5,000 we borrow is roughly $78. So this is roughly 10 grand, give or take. I expect this to be somewhere around $150, $155 a month. But there's no prepayment penalty should you ever want to pay it off early, get some tax return or something like that. So between these 3 options, which one of these makes the most sense for you to get this on the schedule? Right? I'm not asking, do they want to do the work? I'm not asking, would you like to get this on the schedule? I'm assuming you called me, you told me the problem you have. I'm going to show you the solution to do that. And it's not, are we doing it? It's how are we paying for it? Right? So every single proposal I do when I close, I present those 3 options, and I make sure that it's on my proposal. Now, key language. Key language. This, I would write this down. This job qualifies for, right? This job qualifies for 12 months same as cash, 8%, 84-month finance, whatever it is, right? So a lot of times people are afraid to bring out financing because they feel like they're somehow insulting the customer or questioning your ability to be able to pay for it or afford it. I want you to understand that it is the exact opposite. Like, as someone, people that have money understand cash value of money, and they want to use free money. If you're going to offer me same as cash for a year, I'll use my money somewhere else. And if you're gonna give it to me for free, absolutely, I'll take that, right? So, first of all, don't assume that people need to do it. And then secondly, it's not, hey, if you need financing, right? If we have payment options. It's this job qualifies. Anything that we do that's over $1,000, anything that we do that's over $2,500, whatever your policy is, qualifies for this type of program, right? So this just wanted you to know that these are options that you can move forward with should you choose to, right? It's not any insinuation on your ability to pay, right? So I always put that into my proposal. This job qualifies for these, and I will put the payment in there. Typically, I don't know if Green Sky has all the payments already in there, but I will put in there, roughly $74 a month, right? Especially if you go to email this proposal to somebody. Let's say the husband wasn't there and you talk to the wife. What does the husband do when he opens the proposal? Yeah, there's 5 other pages before it, but let me look at that big number. And if he sees, $5 grand, he's like, screw that, call somebody else, or that guy's crazy. But if he also sees $74 a month, he's like, well, hang on, maybe we can have a conversation, right? So you want that to be right there with it. If they are, do you guys do the financing in the home? If they decide, well, you guys are not doing a lot in the home right now, but if they want to do it in the home or they want to do the financing, go ahead and approve them right in the home. That way we got it closed before we leave. We get the signatures, do the app or call Green Sky, whichever one you guys prefer. Questions about financing? Budget? So I use the financing as specifically the 12-month same as cash as a bullshit detector. How many times have you had someone say, well, man, we got 10 other things going on, this is probably something we're gonna have to do next year. How many times have you heard that?
Many times.
All the time. So here's my bullshit test. Absolute bullshit. I'm like, just to be clear, are you shooting me straight? Is this something you really want to do next year, or are you trying to be polite and get me out of your home? No, man, we really do. We gotta put this in. I was like, well, here's the thing. if you really want to do it next year, I've got a deal that you can't pass up, right? I can go ahead and get this work done for you today, this week, whatever, right? You can use your fireplace during this busy season versus not being able to use it, and then you can pay me next year with no interest. If they say no to that, it's bullshit, right? It's very simple. Well, man, we can't do all of this. We can only do the interior or the exterior. Well, obviously we want you to focus on the exterior because the exterior becomes more expensive over time. That scope gets bigger. Man, I'd really like for you to be able to use your fireplace too. It sucks to put all the money on the outside and you can't even really enjoy that. If this is something that you think that you would be able to do next year, I can go ahead and do the exterior and the interior together, and you just pay me for the exterior now and then pay me next year for the interior, no interest for a year. Right? You know how powerful that is? Does this make sense? Am I losing you guys?
No, I feel guilty.
Huh?
I feel guilty. I feel like I just BS'd you, and I'm just sitting here.
Yeah. Well, it's the. I mean, look.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are like, well, let me talk to my wife, but we'll get back to you. And then, like, as soon as they close the door, that guy's nuts. They never, not like they've already decided they're never talking to you again. But they're what we call Minnesota nice, right? They're just trying to be polite. They're like, not wanting to offend you. Yeah.
After you do the BS test, are you following up with that customer again?
No, I'm closing them right then.
You're done.
No, I'm closing them right there in the house.
Okay.
Yeah, and if they're like, well, man, no, we don't really finance. It'll be next year. No problem, man. We'll take care of this for you, stuff, or we'll, if you need time, I can call you in a couple of days, or if this is something that you want to truly put off to next year, yeah, can I have the office go ahead and put you on the calendar for about this time next year, and I'll see you then
For the work.
for the next appointment or whatever it is, right? Right?
Wow. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I'm sorry I had to leave.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't know
okay.
if you covered this already, but
Yes.
my number one objection to financing is every time I bring it up, they're like, no, I'll never do financing. I don't pay for anything I don't have money for.
Yeah,
otherwise.
so that's the Dave Ramsey mentality. It's like, good for you, man. You'll see that my formula when we get into objection handling, I always start with an empathetic statement, right? An empathetic statement is the idea, I understand where you're coming from, right? It's not necessarily sympathy, but it's like, I get it, and it just disarms people. So when someone's like, man, I don't ever finance, like, good for you, brother. If I wish I'd had that lesson when I was in college, because I had credit card bills out the wazoo, and then, I didn't realize, I didn't understand interest rates. I had to eventually put it into a home equity loan. I was paying on probably a cup of coffee I had 10 years ago for 10 years, It's like, I get it, right? So you always kind of tell that empathetic, I did Dave Ramsey, I did the envelope method, I get it, I don't pay for anything that I can't use. That is why our company came up with the Same as Cash program. So let me ask you, if you were to put back money and to do this project next year, how much would you be budgeting for that? And if they're like, well, we couldn't do more than $200 a month. Okay, great. Well, $200 a month in our world gets you $15,000 worth of work. So let's well, I guess that would be true for Same as Cash. That would get you $12,000, $24,000 worth of work. So if you truly planned on putting that $200 back every month, I can go ahead and just front you the $24,000 with no interest, and then at the end of that 12 months, you paid for it, right? Just keep putting the $200 towards it. And again, it's harder on interior sales because they could just say, well, you know what, I'm fine, I just won't use it for a year. But on the exterior, I say, look, the problem is next year when I come back, this 20 or whatever it is, 2,400 very easily could be 3,000, 3,500, and we're in this cycle of always being behind the 8 ball because the exterior work never gets better. So if we can nip this in the bud, great. At the end of the day, like if we don't have the funds for it, I get it, man. That's me. Let's see if.
The same could be said for the interior too, with the cost of materials going up year over year. It's like you're getting today's price
Absolutely.
versus waiting a year. You could go up 10%.
Well, it does. And I tell people, I was like, I don't know if you've shopped lately, but how much stuff is cheaper than it was last year? It's labor, everything. We're at 7-8% inflation. We're at interest rates are out through the roof. It's one of those things. I don't know what this is going to look like next year. So, again, fine line between salesmanship, fear, and education, and just being honest with people. It's like, I'd like to help you take care of this before it gets worse, right? If you're truly stick by your guns and you don't finance anything, good for you, man. I wish I had that discipline. Hopefully this is not a huge project when we come back, but I respect that decision, right? Again, if they understand the impact of not moving forward and they are okay with that impact, I've done my job. That's the way you need to feel about it, right? Can't control what money they have, can't control do they buy, do they not buy. All I can do is educate them on their system, find out what they want, let them know how to do that. And if they choose not to, let them understand what's going to happen over that period of time. And if they're okay with that, they're willing to take that risk, whatever it is, then I've done my job. Right? Questions on this? All right. So, my favorite objection of all time, not. Hey, Alan, that sounds real good, man. Let me talk to my wife and, we'll get back with you. I kind of heard that one. Every day, right? So, here's the difference between being a salesperson and a consultant, right? Let's just say, any of you guys married? Girlfriends, yeah? So, what if your wife called you right now and was like, hey babe, sorry to bother you. Car was making a funny noise, and so I went to the mechanic, and I'm here with them now, and they put together an estimate for me, and they're like, yeah, it's gonna be like $4,100. I'm gonna go ahead and what's your reaction? Don't you sign shit, right? You don't you dare, right? Like, what are you talking about? Who's this guy? What's wrong? Like, what's going on, right? If they perceive you as that guy, right? Like the spouse, like trying to get the spouse on the phone, which is like the whole kind of thing, like that can be counterproductive, right? So the consultant wants what? What's our definition of? Let's go back. Our first test. What's our definition of sales? That's what is our definition for sales? That is the definition of selling. Conversation, right? All we want to do is have a conversation about what? Where you're at, where you're trying to go, right? So let's say we go through this whole thing. If you've done your job right, you absolutely know if there's a spouse in the picture before you get that objection, right? If you've had conversations, pictures on the wall, whatever the case may be. So I'm going to skip ahead to later in the process where we're getting down to it's about time to put together a proposal. And Ms. Jones, I've got these 3 or 4 things that we need to put together for you. I'm going to go to the truck. I'm going to kind of work up some numbers for you. Come sit down, figure out what this looks like now. I don't know if this is something that you and the husband are going to talk about together, but I'm sure I have overwhelmed you with all the information I've already given you. So I'm more than happy when I come back in to go over this with you and your husband together. That way, when he gets home from work, you guys are on the same page and you can have a little bit more of a clear conversation. Right? My goal is to get them to listen, right? To get them on the phone. If I try to go over especially the wife, if I try to say, well, can we get your husband on the phone? That's an insult to her, right? That's like she can't make that decision, or like I need the real decision maker. But if it's like, look, I know how this has got to be frustrating, it's overwhelming, this is a lot of money, you weren't expecting these kind of things. I want to make sure you and your husband are on the same page. So I'm more than happy to kind of explain this to both of you guys at the same time. That way, when he gets home, you guys are on the same page, right? The goal is not to get them on to close. The goal is to get them on to be on the same page. Allow him to ask those, well, so tell me what's going on, the mechanic, right? So what's happening? Why do we need to do this? And, and you get the chance, to calmly kind of explain, well, we did this investigation, and we kind of went through, and then you're explaining, oh, okay, well, I mean, all right, well, let me take a look at it when I get there, or, whatever the case may be, right? So that's the first thing, is always try to get them on the front end. But let's just say we get in there, we explain everything, and they're like, Alan, that sounds good. Let me talk to my husband, we'll figure this out and get back with you. Always start with that empathetic response. Great decision. Miss Jones, I tell you, I've been married for 26 years, and one of the reasons I think I've been married for 26 years is I don't make $10,000 decisions without talking to my wife. That's kind of a very good thing. Now, I know this is a lot of information. It's very overwhelming, a lot of stuff. I'm going to email all this to you for sure. Is there anything that you would like me to re-explain to your husband, or do you feel that you've got this whenever he gets home? And he's like, no, I think I got a pretty good understanding of it. All right, well, I would have a couple shots of Jack waiting for him, because And I swear to God, I will say something like that. I'll be like, it's like, especially if I see bourbon or wine, like, you might want to have that whole bottle ready for this one, But do me a favor, and this is why I say, do me a favor. Have out a piece of pen and paper, so when he gets home, just write down what your thoughts are. Write down what his questions are. I'm going to call you tomorrow, and we'll kind of go over whatever those questions are. And I'm going to get into advances and follow-ups later, but that's the whole idea of that, right? If you and Francis are comfortable with it, if I know there is a spouse that is not going to be there, that's part of the decision maker, I let them record my presentation, like when I'm explaining it. You have to be open to that from a liability standpoint, because you put it on recordings, it's there forever. But ServiceTitan allows you to record your screen, your presentation, your audio, and then you can attach that and send it to the customer. So that's an option if you guys are open to that. Any questions about this objection?
I'm curious just to learn about that option of ServiceTitan.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not a ServiceTitan expert, but I know it's in there. All right, trust. So, I shouldn't say no one. It is rare someone's gonna be like, man, I just don't trust you. Like, that's just not the way that it comes. But, price is the number one objection. Trust is the number one killer of sales, right? I mean, if people do not believe you, trust you, like you, they will not buy from you. It does not matter how good your price is. It does not matter how much sense. If they feel there's anything salesy, shady, not true, like you're manipulative, any part of you as a sales guy, they absolutely will not buy from you. And so a lot of the little stages in the sales process that you're going to say, like, man, why do I got to do that? It's because it's designed to build trust, right? It is designed to build trust. It goes back to that whole, if it feels like you're selling, then stop. And so I call this thing called the so what test, right? It's the whole idea of, let's just role play this for a second. So let's say my chimney needs, my chimney has some missing mortar, right? So what would you tell me if my chimney has missing mortar? Christian.
Yes.
So
Yes, sir.
my chimney has missing mortar. I'm your customer. What would you tell me?
So I would first make sure that I had everything on my iPad to show you pictures.
Yep. Oh, I see the
don't
picture.
Like,
yeah, it's missing
I don't
mortar.
like to explain without photos.
Sure. Good.
So I would first airdrop all of my photos over to my iPad. I'm gonna bring my iPad in. I'm explaining to Ms. Jones what's going on, where the water can be going to, and what can happen if it's not resolved, and what we do to resolve that issue.
Okay. So specifically, I have missing mortar. What are you telling me?
Yeah, so I would say, Ms. Jones, so you have deteriorated mortar joints between the bricks here that's hold the brick together. With this problem here, you can actually have water that can leach through that brick and mortar. It can find its way into the interior of the chimney and actually
So what?
find its way into the home.
So what?
So that means that you can have a water leak present in your home. It can damage the interior finishes of your home. This is something that you want to get taken care of.
Okay. You guys do something similar? What do you say? You got missing mortar.
I usually tell these are areas that water can enter the home.
So what?
That water can cause further damage to the bricks. This is
So what?
the point that you need minimal repairs, but this
Okay.
water entry could proceed to cause these bricks to deteriorate to a point where it's costing you thousands of dollars.
Okay.
Because from a structural standpoint, it needs to be rebuilt.
What is the only thing people care about when it comes to their home?
How it looks or functionality.
Function, right? Like, I mean, it's like what? So it's the impact of not moving forward, right? So you have water in your chimney. It's causing freeze-thaw damage. So what, right? Well, water can cause mortar to. So what? Well, that can cause structural instability. So what? Well, structural instability, then all this, bricks could fall onto the home. So what? Well, that could damage the roof. So the whole idea is you have to keep going until you get to something they care about, right? If they don't care about the impact, they're not going to spend money on it. So when you get, and I'm kind of being dramatic with you guys, but the idea is, if we leave this unaddressed, and this is a good time to show you guys, and we'll take a break here in a little bit, but I want to show you guys.
I like that so what, Alan. That's really good because as you're pulling that up, customer, you can kind of read they hadn't got to the so what yet.
That's right.
You know, they're looking at, okay, yeah, they hadn't got to the so what. So if you know when you're there, you just have to kind of keep getting
And
it.
you know when you're there when they start asking you buying questions, right? When you're like, hey, water's caused your motor to, okay, all right, well, you know, okay, well, I mean, water is now getting in here, more water is getting in there, and it's can cause bricks to, okay, you know, if water gets past the flashing, starts to get into the home, okay, then next thing you're gonna see water leaks in your ceiling, and you're gonna start having mold and mildew, and if anybody in the home has respiratory issues, you know, because like you're gonna eventually hit something they care about, and it's not that you're solving the mortar issue, it's you're solving that what they don't want to happen, right? So I am a huge visual guy, right? So there's 3 go-to videos that I use when I am talking to customers about water intrusion. And let's see if this thing will. So this is, I don't know if you guys have seen these before, but so this is the first one. You know, I always tell every customer an average brick, masonry 8-inch brick on a chimney will absorb a cup and a half of water, right? It's a big sponge. And so we time lapse this with half a brick for 2 hours, and we can just see how quickly water absorbs into this brick. So think about it, a cup and a half of water in the hundreds of bricks that you have, that's thousands, potentially thousands of gallons of water. What happens when all those bricks are full?
They become heavy.
Well, they become heavy, but what happens? Like if you were to take a sponge and you put it under under the sink, right? And you just turn on the faucet real quick. And what does that sponge do? Yeah, but what does water come out the other side? No, it absorbs it, right? Now, what happens if I leave the faucet on?
Eventually it'll start dripping down.
100%. So if all my bricks are full of water, what happens?
The water's rolling through
To where?
The
house.
The interior portions of your home
Starts with
where
the
you
attic.
don't want it.
That's exactly right? So it's these type of visuals that are people like, no one wants water in their home, right? No one like, literally, if you build a brand new chimney tomorrow and you didn't waterproof it, within a week you could have water in the home, right? Literally, those bricks could absorb. If you had enough rain, you could have water in the home. So why would you spend that kind of money and not protect? Why would you not do the water column? Why would you not do those types of things, right? So here's the other one that I show people. This is a classic chimney saver video, and guys, if you don't have these, I'll send any of these to you, but this was a test that we did. This is just regular mortar on a chimney, right? This is regular mortar, head joint, bed joint, with chimney saver on it, right? So we pour water on it, we clearly see that there is no water coming out, but it's still breathable. I can blow air through it so the water can escape on the other side. So any water that's trapped can come out, and just don't let new water in. Now when I do this exact same test without chimney saver, look how fast that water goes through, right? These are the kind of things that customers want to see. Look, do you want this happening to your home, right? This is the kind of stuff that we stop. And then the biggest thing is, I'm a huge outside mount cap guy. I sell an outside mount cap on every job. And I use a video like this that has a wind tunnel showing wind coming at the chimney and showing the power of the drip edge. Even with wind-driven rain, I can stop the majority, 80-90% of water from coming down and never even touching your chimney. And if we do that with the water repellent, I feel like we're not gonna have to put any money into this chimney ever again. Maybe reapply a water repellent every 10 years or so. But this is, these are the kind of things that we need to be educating our customer on. And if you go through this type of stuff, you inevitably build trust because you obviously know what you're talking about, right? So it's not just what is wrong and what you need to do, it's what happens if we don't do it. Does that make sense? Okay. Y'all ready to buy some water packages from me yet?
We never once talked about water repellent either. We never got into the actual product,
Yeah.
which is great,
Yeah.
because people don't care.
They don't. So, perceived need, it's been fine for 30 years, right? I don't know, man. I've lived in this house for a long time. You can do that whole, like the kid said, things change, cocaine, blah, blah, blah. But this is an objection, honestly, if you get it, it's almost too late, right? This is an objection prevention type of thing. So what I would do in a case like this, and you'll see this when we get into the day by day or the language in the inspection process, but I always involve the customer in my scan, right? And so let's just say I've got the camera in the smoke chamber, and we find that the smoke chamber's, you know, unparged, or there's a core hole or something like that, right? So I would say, now, Christian, remind me again, I'm sorry, when did you say this house was built?
1984.
84. Okay, well that makes sense. You know, I'm a little surprised. Usually by the 80s they start to start to do this right, but this really wasn't a code until 2004. But basically, and I showed you this diagram earlier, that we want to see this nice smooth transition into the flue, and really what we're seeing here is what we call an unparged smoke chamber. It basically means we have raw brick, almost like an upside down staircase in the middle of your fireplace. And so the whole point of the smoke chamber is to take this large volume of smoke, carbon monoxide, heat, and out of this big firebox and funnel it into this smaller flue system. And the system that you have set up now is not allowing that to happen. And so when the smoke comes and hits those stairs, instead of going into the flue, it twirls around there a little bit, right? And so it's hanging out, and we call that residency time. And basically, this is the hottest part of the fire. So this smoke is starting to bake right there onto the side, and that becomes a combustible, which, you know, we just don't want really near heat. But the biggest thing, just like I was explaining to you that those bricks are like sponges for water, they're sponges for heat as well. And the whole reason you see that these fire brick you have in your firebox these are special brick that are designed to not allow heat to transfer behind them. These are just regular brick. So when heat is going through, I don't know what all is in your walls. I don't know what framing is here. I don't know what's going on. But if you want to just totally be a chimney nerd, you can go to look up pyrolyzation on the internet. And basically all that says is that every time a combustible product is exposed to heat, the ignition temperature of that combustible product lowers. And so you've been using this just for 50 years, right? But every time you use the fireplace, that whatever's in that wall, the ignition temperature is getting lower. Eventually it will get to the point where it can have an ignition, right? I don't have the magic ball. Is that tomorrow? Is that 100 years from now? But I just know that you're at risk from that. So depending on how risk adverse you are, right, we would tell you absolutely not to use this system. Very simple fix that we take care of all the time. But if you continue to use the system in its current condition, you are increasing the likelihood that you could have an ignition outside of your fireplace, right? If I go through that little spill there, it's very hard at the end of the appointment to, oh man, I've been using this for 30 years, you know. Well, as we said, you know, every time you use the fire, we are increasing, and so you kind of can go back to that, right? Whereas it's very hard to do that after the fact, right? You kind of got to do it in the process. So a lot of what we do is objection prevention as much as objection handling. We just talked about option stall with you, the paradox of choice. Just again, discuss options, don't propose them. Remember, you're the expert. Like that whole HVAC example I gave you. They want the reason they called you is they want your professional opinion on how to solve this problem. They don't want to pick it themselves, right? They don't tell me what I need to do. And again, you're still going to put them in a buy-in position because they're telling you, you're telling them what they need to do for what they want, not just telling them what they need to do. So kind of going through with that. And then the last thing I'm not going to spend a ton of time on, but just to hit the point, this is mainly an office thing. This is where you have to have forward scheduling. This is where you have to have, all those kind of things. I tell the customer that, look, people call us in November. This is the busiest time of the year for us. We're typically booked out 4 to 6 weeks this time of the year. And it's going to be true with any certified chimney company that you call it. If someone could get to you this week, there's a reason they can get to you this week, and I would be very, very leery of that. But if you can honor me with this one-time wait, then I've got a system in place where you'll never have to wait again, right? We'll put you in our spring schedule, and you'll get priority service and things like that. One trick I want you guys to, are you guys familiar with what an escrow is? You ever heard that term?
Mortgage?
Yeah, say exactly. So, so what is it? What an escrow is?
It's like an account we pay into, so you have money in the covered funds.
Exactly, it's a holding account, right? So, so if you have a realty deal where you go out and they're like, hey, I'm closing on this deal on this day, and man, I can't get to this for at least 2 weeks after that, right? Then you can you can put your job into escrow, right? So basically, the person who is selling the home will be the buyer, but the person who is buying the home becomes the customer. And so there's just a one form piece of paper. You can get it from your realtor, and basically they go ahead and write the check to All American Chimney, but you don't get that check until the house closes, right? So that way, it's because a lot of people will just use you for contingency, right? Just like, well, I just want to know what it is, so I know how much money to negotiate off the house, or whatever the case may be. When you do this, you guarantee that the money that is not going off the house, but is going for the actual repairs that need to be done. So it's a nice little trick that you can do just to make sure that you actually still get the business with realtors and say, if they're like, well, I can't get to this till after that, but if you want, we can escrow it and do it 2 weeks after and your realtors will completely understand that. Okay.
Is that for the buyer or the seller?
Either one. Yeah, either one. It has to be in the buyer typically. I mean, either one could pay for it, right? It doesn't, like, whenever you do an escrow reconciliation, like if you ever bought a house, you'll see there's all these fees the buyer owes, the seller owes, right? And it could be on either side of it, just depending on what they negotiate, in their closing. But that's beyond that. As long as we have a check for this amount, I don't care who's writing it, right? So, all right, let's take I got 11:07. Let's go. We can go to 11:15, and then we'll come back and do another solid hour, and then we'll do lunch like 12:15, something like
Sounds
that.
good.
Okay.